It's Jarren. Welcome to my new studio. You've probably seen it in the back of videos for the past couple of weeks, but I wanted to walk you through my environment right now. I think the environment around you is very important. It helps shape what kind of work you can do there. And so as I'm building this out, I'm keeping in mind, I want this to be a place to be productive in, and I want this to be a place that I'm happy being in. So first off, this studio space is very unique. It's built to be temporary. And that was really hard for me because I'm kind of at the point where I want to establish myself and stay in one place for a pretty long time. But because of life situations, my wife Taylor and I are in Pennsylvania for about a year. Knowing that we're going to leave, we only have things that will last us for a year. After that, we either pass it on or we get rid of it. So let's get into it. This is my studio show and tell. First off, I have my ukulele over here with a little keyboard. I have my other keyboard. I don't have a full-sized keyboard. I used to, but I realized it was just a huge waste of space for me, and it was very hard to carry that around whenever I needed to move. I have my microphone here, which is great for voiceover, and my personal favorite use is singing into it. It's great for music production and actually capturing instruments as well. Next, I have my iMac, and it's the fundamental necessity for my studio. Most of my work is done digitally, whether it's designing a 3D model, creating music, any graphic design work. All of this stuff happens here. Not to mention video editing, because that is a big, big responsibility. And I have a laptop, can't handle working on videos like this. After that, I have the UMC 404 HD sound card. This is a great way for me to interface with my computer and all my microphones and everything like that. It's actually a little bit larger than ones I've had in the past, and I figured it would just be a good thing to have to build on top of. So focusing on the desk, the first thing that you might not notice is that it is a folding table. I picked that for a couple specific reasons. One, they are folding, so it's easy to move from place to place. I don't think I'll be doing too much of that here, but I do plan on giving this table away to my parents once I'm done here. So I know that they were typically looking for a folding table, and this helped keep the cost down. Now, if you haven't noticed, folding tables are usually pretty ugly. They don't look that great. So my compromise here is to add marble textured tiles to the top and side. It helps a lot with making the room look better, with making the table look better, and ever so slightly some structural support. And again, my mindset is, does this look good in videos? Is this aesthetically pleasing? I would say this setup doesn't hold up as well in person as it does on video, but I'm also a little crazy about that stuff, so if I have guests over, I'm sure they'll love it. Before I moved into this apartment, in our last apartment, I had a huge idea to build out a big pegboard wall, and I had the entire office studio space worked out in my mind and drawn out, and I just never got the time. We had to leave too quickly. I even bought a giant piece of plywood to drill and make my own pegboard, and it all fell apart. Even though that was frustrating, I decided this time to compromise a little bit. I have some smaller pegboards here. I think it feels a little bit unbalanced right now. I'll probably put a couple posters up on the wall, but I think the pegboard is a great way to display objects that I think are aesthetically pleasing, and so that's kind of the goal there. When I put the bottom shelf of the pegboard up, I realized that one tile would fit perfectly up against the bottom shelf of the pegboard. I can run wires and a couple things behind that gap in the wall, and it also brings out everything a little bit more, so it just makes it a little bit more of an aesthetic kind of place, especially for photos and video. Starting at the bottom, this is just a small glass with a couple of pens and pencils. I typically use mechanical pencils. That is my tool of choice. These are Daiso mechanical pencils. They're aluminum. They're about $1.33. They're incredible. I hate the eraser, and I have plans to 3D print a modified eraser tip so that I can use the big erasers, which work much better. But I love this pencil. Next up, I have a kalimba. Taylor got this for me for Christmas, and I have loved it so far. Every now and then, I live stream on Reddit Pan, which is kind of ridiculous, but I just do it anyway. And I've played the kalimba a few times on there. I have $60,000 in cash. It is prop money. It's not real. I wish it were real, but it's not. I think it's just so funny to see this amount of money in one place, and I just really enjoy the way that it looks and sits. After that, I have a couple of cash bills from Singapore, Indonesia, and Hong Kong. And those were the couple of countries that my wife and I went to on our honeymoon. I've always loved cash from other countries. I think one of the things that really captures my attention is the way standardization and infrastructure happens over other countries and other cultures. For instance, here we have stop signs that look a certain way, but in Europe they look different, in Asia they look different. It's a really crazy way to experience different design with something that you should feel familiar with, and then it just is a little bit different. Next up, I have a mocha pot or a maca pot. This makes coffee using pressure. It's a lot of fun to use, and I think it's extremely aesthetic, but it doesn't work the way I want it to all the time. When you brew with it, it uses about 1.5 to 2 bars of pressure, so you're not getting anywhere near the 9 that you would need for espresso, and you're not getting normal drip coffee. A lot of times when I would drink this, I would dilute it with water or pour it over ice. This is a jar with a cork. Next up, I have a yellow Game Boy Color. This is not the original Game Boy Color I grew up playing, but when I was in high school, I realized I had gotten rid of all of my Game Boys, and I lost my mind that I had done that. Why would I do that? So I got this one again. I also have an original Game Boy. This is actually the Play It Loud version, which is why it's clear instead of the gray beige color that they had before. This came out in 1995 alongside the Game Boy Pocket, so it was either, do you want a clear Game Boy or do you want a smaller Game Boy? I would have picked the smaller one. Next up, I have a holographic or shiny Speed Racer card. Really no significance to this, I just like Speed Racer. Hey look, it's a succulent! Next up, I have the Canon Dial 35-2. I've made videos about this in the past. I just love film cameras. I think they're an incredible way of capturing something and then sharing that. I love the process that goes into it and the end result as well. This camera is insane. I have sleigh bells. Next up, I have the Minolta 16EE2. This is considered a spy film camera because it's tiny. This was before they standardized the 110 type film, so I can't actually put film in here unless I'm crazy enough to start cutting my own in the middle of the dark and then put it in here. I don't care enough to do that, so this is useless. Next up, Sony Walkman. I have a video about this as well, and this is just a cassette tape that I found to be aesthetic because it's clear, right? Plastic is clear and it's fun when it's clear. Great. This is a notebook that Taylor and I got for our engagement. I have one, she has one. It is leather bound and it's extremely uniquely put together. Not very stable, but a lot of fun. If I felt like I wanted to be in Lord of the Rings all the time, I would probably be using this. I did write a lot in preparation for our wedding in here. It was a lot of just self-reflection before we got into that. iPod Nano, pocket dial caliper, or just caliper. Great for accurate measurements, but also it's tiny and fun. This is a lomography film camera. It is normal 35mm film, but it has 8 lenses because it takes 8 photos in a sequence and stacks them next to each other. 2 of the lenses don't work, and it's really, really cheap. They're pinhole cameras, so it doesn't really do much. But I think aside from a spring or two, this entire thing is plastic. So a mental challenge for me is to 3D print one of these. Probably won't happen, but it's a mental challenge for myself. I have 2 pairs of glasses here. These ones are computer glasses. Back when I was in high school, I saw something on woot.com and thought, that sounds like something I need because I'm a computer guy. I've used these for a sum total of 3 hours. I don't particularly enjoy them. They do zoom a little bit, so it is nice, I guess, for a change of pace, but I've found very little value from them. These are completely fake. They just exist. I've kept these though because for my concept series I plan on making something about augmented reality, and both of these glasses would convey the type of frame that I'd like to see in some ways. Next up I have my 3D printer, which is the Ender 3D Pro. I really, really like this. I've only printed 2 things on it so far. I'm still trying to figure out the quirks of when it should work and when it shouldn't work. If something doesn't print right, how do I fix it? I really want to be able to just quickly print things without second thought. So until I get my muscle memory down of how to fix a problem, I'm just trying to kind of pace myself with that. I have 4 milk crates that are zip tied together. And then on top of that, I have a piece of plywood With more of the marble-styled panels on top, it fits 4 perfectly, which is awesome. I have additional desk space, and if I'd like a different texture to use in videos for top-down shots, I can flip that board around and then I have the plywood. I've done the best I could to hide any cables. I actually have a little panel that I put together just to hide some other things. It's weird with the folding table to have wires just hanging around, and when I'm shooting with this camera, at this angle, you can kind of see under the table, so I have to either make it look good or I have to angle it differently, and let's be honest, this is probably the best angle for what I have here. I have a soldering iron, a power drill, and a couple of other things. Essentially, the way the desk is laid out, this area is more of a digital workspace, and the farther to the left that I push, I end up with a more physical workspace. The hard thing with studio spaces is that they're not always very beautiful. Everything in front of the camera is meant to look good, but everything behind it is typically pretty messy. You have a lot of wires hanging places and things that are temporarily out of a box and need to be put away. That's kind of the nature of video. You really have to set something up, and every now and then you have to move something around and decompile things. After I film this section, I have to go in and film all the clips where you can see the product really close up. That requires a lot of extra work and moving things around, adjusting lighting. So having things in a permanent position is kind of hard unless I have a permanent setup. So this space here is designed for me to feel as productive as possible, for me to easily be able to grab anything that I could use to make something. I want to be encouraged to be creative through my workspace. I don't want to have to unpack things and then prep things. Here, everything is ready to go. I've run some wires for the 3D printer. All I have to do is click print on my computer. I don't have to worry about micro SD cards. I can just go. I know this video is slightly off topic from the things that I've been filming recently. I will get back to that type of content. Expect a new video next week. I'm very excited to share more with you. If you want, you can check out my Notion page. This is the page where I have a Kanban board of all of the different projects that I'm working on for this channel. You want to see what's coming next? Go check it out. I have the script, or the beginning of a script, for this video written there. So if you want, you can click through and you can read what's coming up next in videos. And past that, let's say you look at that and you have an idea, send me a message on my Discord server and we can talk more about it. I'm curious to know what your workspace looks like. Do you lay down on your bed and hold your phone over and occasionally drop it on your face? Or do you have a desk with some tools or a musical instrument? If you want, you can send that to me on Twitter, and I'd love to see what your spaces look like as well. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next week.